Welcome back to Prepare to Read. My name is Marcos, and I'm here with my good friend Jacob. And this week we're diving deep into chapters 40 through 43 of Brandon Sanderson's Way of Kings.
Yep, that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
I don't know why that felt so much more
I thought you were
awkward
going to say
than
something.
last time. I'm sorry. No.
We can actually see each other.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things to mention really quick. Our Discord channel, the Prepare to Read Discord, is up and running. So if you want to join that, we have a couple of good people in there that we've been talking about all things Stormlight and other things that we're reading. And also, we have a subscriber question that we wanted to open up with. If you want to take that, Jacob.
Yes. So, from out of the Discord, I'm not going to share names because I don't know if people are okay with it. So let me know if in the future if I can share your name. But anyways, the question comes from the Discord, and it is, who is your favorite character and why is it Syl? Marcos, you go first. Well, keep it to Way of Kings characters since we're going to try to be as spoiler-free as possible.
Yeah, so my favorite character is Dalinar. I like his whole, the retired war general vibe and how he's kind of having to be this new person compared to who he was, and he struggles a lot with kind of trying to uphold these values that aren't really upheld around him. So he's trying to be a leader in that regard, and yeah, I like his character.
It's not Syl for you?
No, Syl is cool though. I did start Wind and Truth, which I will not talk about Wind and Truth, but I did start Wind and Truth, and some real cool stuff that's kind of even changing what I'm thinking of Way of Kings. So
interesting. Well, I guess on my end, I do really like Syl. I just feel like I don't know enough about her. We do get a little more sprinkles of her history. Yeah, I do. She's interesting to me because she's Spren and she's like evolving, adapting, and then I really enjoy her, but I feel like I don't know enough of her right now to call her my favorite. So if I were to pick a favorite, I think it's between Yasna, Dalinar, and Shallan. And out of those three...
So just all the characters.
What?
Between all the characters.
Yeah, pretty much. But I think out of those... I mean, I feel like it's got to be Shallan. I really enjoy her chapters. She has become someone who's like kind of funny. I know we would rag on her a lot, but I've grown to really like her attitude and personality. And I like the story that she's in right now. It gets me. I mean, I talk about it a lot here. Like the pages just turn when I'm reading her chapters, and she's my favorite.
Oof, it's good to hear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for the rest of this book. In preparation for Wind and Truth, I watched a recap of Way of Kings, and it just reminded me of a lot of things that happened in this book that I actually didn't even know happened here. I thought they happened like 2 books from now. So knowing that they're coming, I'm like, oh man, that's cool. I think we're right at the mark where we're gonna hit like the Sanderlanche, the kind of this. Yeah, we're getting to the part where it's going to climax. So.
Whoa.
That's a weird way to put that.
No, the climax. I think that's what they call it in stories.
They do, yeah.
It's funny.
PG podcast.
Yes,
PG
of
podcast.
Course. Yeah, we try to be. It's funny because Marcos put in the Discord that he was starting Wind of Truth, like whatever day of the week at like 5:35 p.m. And then like maybe like 10 minutes later, he puts in the Discord also, does anybody have any, recap videos that I can watch?
It's kind of been a running thing with the podcast that I have forgotten like 95% of the book.
Yeah, I was genuinely surprised last episode when you said you knew who that was in Shallan's sketch. It's like...
Dude, it gets dense. I was thinking just while reading Wind and Truth, like, the conversations we're going to be having down the line are going to get real...
Yeah, we're going to need like
real in there.
A third person in the podcast that just like lore master.
Yeah, it gets real involved. So, Cool. Well, you ready to jump in the chapters?
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's go ahead and start with chapter 40, titled Eyes of Red and Blue. Ooh. So we're with Kaladin, and we're back in Sadeas' war camp. And Kaladin, he is awaking from his injuries, and he's confused about why he's alive following the high storm, because he really went through it. And from here, he comes outside, and he sees that his bridge crew is training. They're out, they're running bridges, and it's pretty much like they're keeping up the traditions that Kaladin had tried to instill in them. And Teft, he's kind of like our non-believer converting over guy. He's keeping his distance though, and he's the only one that knows how he possibly survived. He was the one that had the sphere and noticed that Kaladin was pretty much breathing in this stormlight. So he's kind of interested in what's going on right here. And Kaladin, he's just kind of thinking about what happened in the storm, what he saw, because we saw that he saw a face in the storm. And he was shocked to find out that he was only unconscious for 10 days, because considering he got thrown around like a flag, he thought, man, I broke things. I shouldn't even be alive right now. And when the bridge crew is called out for a run, Kaladin goes to help and carry... Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so a couple things here. So I want to talk about you mentioning he comes out of the barracks and he sees the crew going through their like daily routine that he has trained them on. And I feel like just reading the story sometimes I'm like, I need to give this to like my boss's boss and like all the people there, because they always talk about like, they always have these weird like corporate metaphors where it's like, okay, you're pushing the ball up the hill or the rock up the mountain, but if you leave, how does it stay? And like they're always about like systems and stuff like that. And all I can think about, I hate it, is like, oh man, Kaladin's got a system and he's wedged the rock on the mountain so it doesn't roll back down. But I wanted to talk.
It definitely does show though, like Kaladin is leading these people well.
Yes.
For it to be running healthily, as far as we know, with his absence.
Yeah, man. And then they even like had a Rock be they call him squad leader, and they start calling him Captain Kaladin. So I liked that.
No, I think this is a good moment to kind of remember, because I think it adds kind of severity to what happens later. Like it kind of makes it a lot deeper than what happens. But I'll touch on that later when it comes up again.
Okay, and then I had something else. It's when he's talking about his time of, I guess, recovery. Those 10 days, and he goes, what is it? He has memories of Desprin were blended with relived parts of his life, and both mixed with strange, sudden shocks of strength, icy cold, but refreshing. He could remember, this is later on, he could remember those moments so clearly. What caused them? The fever? So I don't know if we've had somebody else have an instance of, like, because the only person I could think of that might, he sounds like he does what Seth does with the Stormlight, like where he sucks it out of like the lights that are the spheres. And I didn't go back and check to see if Seth felt coldness when he did that. And then I think there's another part I want to say with Dalinar, when he goes in that weird, like, he's having one of his visions and he's reliving something that happened in, I think, the past.
When he's spazzing out.
Yeah, and I want to say one of them heals him and he feels that. But again, I didn't go back and check. But I wanted to call it out, because I'm like, okay, is he feeling these cold, blasts of strength or whatever when he's drawing the Stormlight in? Or was this something related to just him being sick? So I need to go back and check, but I wanted to call it out.
Right now you could do some detail analysis of like, okay, how is the Stormlight used? And I won't comment too much on it, but yeah.
So I might on our next episode, I might have an answer on if we've seen that before. So Zeth, and I don't know if you know if it's a spoiler or not, but He's a surge binder. Is that
Yeah.
right?
I was just thinking that. I didn't want to say it, but yes, Zeth is a surge binder.
Yeah, so does that make... Like, what I'm thinking is what Kaladin does, at least from what we know, sounds like what Zeth does. So I'm guessing Kaladin's a surge binder. I'm sure that there's going to be, like... What else have we heard? We've heard another one, like, in the super beginning.
He's using the words.
Yeah, that's right.
You're starting to get in there.
That's right. Call me a...
surge binder.
A Sandy. I don't know. What does Sanderson's fans
I don't know what he calls his people. I don't know.
All right. But that's all I had right now.
Okay. Well, so on this next section, I think this one's going to kind of bring up a couple questions. Is the scene cuts to Kaladin watching an unfolding battle, which appears to be close between the Parshendi and Sadeas's men. And with this, Kaladin starts to converse with Rock and Sigzil about why do the Parshendi fight? What is their reason for fighting? And through this, Kaladin comes to the realization that basically the bridge crews are bait. They're left purposely exposed so that when the Parshendi are engaged with Sadeas's men, they see the exposed people and they kill them first. So that way they don't kill the troops. But that raises the question, why do you think the Parshendi fight? Do you have a reason?
So they do talk about here, I have it underlined, Sigzil, tough name. I don't hate it, but it's
Sigzil.
That's Zigzil. That's a tough one to pronounce. He says they must have soul casters. They need the gemstones for the same reason we do, to make food. And that sounds as good a reason as any to me. I still think, right, this isn't the first time the question has been brought up. They're willing to risk so many people. We think that they have less people right now. I think that's a great reason, and I think I subscribe to that right now. But I feel like there's something else going on, and that's probably an obvious answer. But I want to say...
It's an important detail, though, to remember that Sadeas is using them as bait.
Oh, yeah. Well, then for the bridgemen?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we do finally get that. At least Kaladin makes that conclusion of like, oh, yeah, we're bait. Like, we draw arrows. The Parshendi think they're doing a good job. And we're bait. I guess that makes sense. I don't love it. I hate to say it. I don't love it. Because at the end of the day, I feel like there's still got to be... There's got to be a better reward to the bridgemen being used more effectively than they are. And I guess it is also seen as like a punishment, right? Like a reminder that, hey, you are not us.
Well, I think it's interesting because it's not just, oh, bridgemen are bait and everybody uses them as bait. Like, you're probably having a lot of the same dilemmas that even like Dalinar has. Of like, that is a terrible use of them. Why would you use them that way?
Yeah.
Because not everybody uses them that way. Dalinar doesn't. So
it's specifically Sadeas, right? So you say his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sadeas.
So I don't know. I don't. To me, right now, that's Kaladin's reason, and I understand why he thinks that. I still don't think that's quote the reason. I might be wrong. I might be completely wrong, and that's all it is. But I just feel like I can't accept that that's the only thing because it just doesn't make sense to me. But I want to go back to something here, and I think this will be a huge topic that we discuss throughout these chapters. So we get a little line here when we cut right to them on the battle scene, and this is what it says. Kaladin stood at the edge of the precipice, hands clasped behind his back, sandaled toes at the very edge of the cliff. The chasm stared up at him, but he did not meet its gaze. So I read that, and I was like, what's that, like, super famous Nietzsche quote? And it's like, shoot, I'm going to blank on it right now. When you look into the abyss, it also looks back into you, or whatever. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, I think this saying, the chasm stared up at him, but he did not meet its gaze, is a signal of Kaladin moving on. Like, he does no longer looking into that abyss and seeing everything that's evil. Like he's focused on the future and what's ahead of him. And then I was like, holy shit, man! Like, have I missed this whole thing about chasms and why Kaladin's here now? Because he's really down in it, man. And let me pull up my little analysis notes that I took here because I had some good stuff. But no, what do you think of that?
Well, that kind of ties into the last section, which is pretty much Kaladin kind of struggling with why the bridge crews are used and how their purpose is basically just to die. And through this, he's kind of sitting on the edge of going back to his old depressed self. And yeah, Sigzil's kind of trying to convince him, like, no, Kaladin, like, giving the man false hope is a good thing and all of that. But yeah, what you're saying kind of ties into that, his whole struggle of, am I going to turn back to my depression, pretty much.
Yeah. And I mean, we did get a question.
Well, which ties into our subscriber question.
Yes. Where it says, where did it say?
I think it's like, do you buy the depression?
Yeah. Cal witnesses
the depiction of his depression.
Bridge life without his immediate leadership and reflects on the battle. His depressive thoughts return as he realizes what bridgemen are actually for, bait. He also witnesses the bond developing between the bridgemen. Do you feel like the beginnings of a re-spiral into depression is just a writer writing misery, or do you feel it's fairly realistic? We talked about this a little bit. My answer is I don't know. Because part of me feels like, I'm not going to lie, I'm like, ugh. Like, I wrote this whole thing of like, wow, he's not looking into the abyss anymore. He's delved into his chasm. He's come back up and he's above it, you know? Like, he's moved on. And the next, like, 10 pages, it's like, and he's sad again. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't even have people who are close to me that have been that, I guess, afflicted with depression to say if I notice these things. I know things like addiction, it is immediate of like, hey, looking good, and then boom, like, no, not, like, we're back. So I imagine depression's similar, you know?
So what I would say, I know Sanderson, for one, with these books, he definitely explores a lot of mental health issues. We'll see that come up even more in his other books. But I know he does do a lot in regards to his homework on talking to pretty much like professionals or people that have experience with these types of things. So I wouldn't be surprised if he actually talked to psychologists or had them review some of this and say, like, I wanted to depict depression accurately. Is this an accurate depiction? And yeah, we talked a little bit, and I just said, like, from our experiences or just growing up and seeing people who, like, were sad, I wouldn't say they were, like, depressed. But yeah, that's how they work. Like, one day it was happy, and then the next day it's sad, or like something brought them down, and it is kind of a very back and forth thing.
Yeah, so. And I think it's also, I mean, we're already bleeding over into that other chapter, but like a commentary on a support system. Like, if Kaladin didn't make that investment to become a person to these people, not just another bridgeman that's out there to die, he wouldn't have been pulled. I mean, he might still feel like what he calls himself, the wretch. But they called him out. They were like, hey, man, like, you can't do this anymore. Like, you've started something. Like, people are looking to you. And they pulled him out of him just reverting into what he calls, like, apathy and just not caring anymore to protect himself. So I think that's more... I know what section you're talking about. I think that ties into his depression, but I also think that's kind of almost a PTSD type coping thing of like, oh, instead of like, I'm just going to be apathetic towards the situation. So yeah, I don't know people with PTSD either. So no, but I still think it's either way. I think it's a good commentary on, you know, building relationships and what having those relationships can do for you. Like, he was already thinking when he was walking down into the chasm, he looked in chapter 42, and he's like, I could just fly for a little bit, you know? And I really like the way Sanderson put that. You know, it's such a Like I think when people say flying, it's like, oh man, like such a freeing connotation and like overall good. And it's like, well, he'd be flying to his death, and I just really liked that. But no,
Yeah.
I
No,
really
and I
deep
don't think
dived here.
I don't think he goes too mopey about the like depression stuff. But also, I think it's Sanderson's style because in some of his recent writing lectures, he even talks like, "Dude, I've tried to write grimdark and like real sad stuff, and I just can't do it. It always ends up being hopeful and this and that." So I think this is him trying to be a little more deep with it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's doing it well considering it's not one of his areas that he enjoys. I think.
No, and I think it works. I think I like this section. My only complaints, and both times I had this complaint, is that it's been so short. Like the first time, like we saw Kaladin at his lowest, and then like it didn't feel that long. You know, it was like immediately things changed around. And then this time too, it's like, okay, he goes from being at the highest point he's been at since being a bridgeman to like almost immediately back down to where he was. And then it's like, okay, now we're up to here again. Like maybe not all the way up to the top, but like significant. That's the only thing that feels like it's takes me out of it is like that quick turnaround. But other than that, I think I don't think he's just writing misery. I do think it's at least fairly realistic to answer the question.
Yeah. Okay. Well, moving on, because we're going to come back to really similar topics in one of the next chapters. Chapter 41 is of Alds and Milp. Okay. Not sure what that means entirely, but we're still with Kaladin, now back in Hearthstone to a flashback 5.5 years ago. So here, Kaladin is pushing past a historical laurel to join Lirin in the surgery room. And pretty much what happened is Rashon and his son, Relir, were out hunting white spines, and Relir got pierced through the torso. And his leg is like hanging off.
Yep.
He got Robert Baratheon.
He did.
And so Kaladin, he's there. He's helping wash out Relir's stomach so that the father can examine it. And as this is happening, Lirin, basically Rashon, his son ends up dying. And Lirin has to go, and he basically just tells Lirin...
His son doesn't die. He wasn't dead. We get this, like, really, I think, really cool scene of, you know, Lirin stopping working on Relar. Is that how you say his name? Yeah.
Relir?
Relir? Yeah.
Relir.
And he walks over to Rashon, and Rashon's like, what are you doing? Go work on my son. And he's like, no. We have 3 rules. Or, like, 3 codes that we live by. Or whatever, like, ranking system. And he's like, if both wounds are equal, you treat the youngest first. And he's like, okay, well, go help him. And he's like, okay, no, but, like, if they're not equal, you treat the more severe wound. And he's like, okay, well, exactly. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, go help him. And he's like, but the 3rd rule overtakes all of them. If you like, there's nothing I can do to save him. Like, you gotta know when it's out of your abilities, and I gotta do what I can. And all they did was like they gave him a little chloroform, knocked him out. And that was it, man.
Yeah.
They let him die. Like, and not. I don't think it was immoral, which we get these questions a lot coming up. But it was cool, man. It was hardcore. Like, it was just there's nothing we can do to save him. Mm-hmm. They moved on.
Yeah, and this next part's kind of interesting because Lirin starts to basically complain about, like, these light eyes do stupid things. Like, there's all these people going and dying at a war, and these guys are out going and hunting things that could kill them. Like, they just, like, have no regard for life. And while Lirin's kind of thinking through this, and he's working on Rashon, he's like on Rashon's artery, and he thinks to himself, like, I could just cut it, and, like, he would be dead, and I wouldn't have to deal with this stuff that we're going through. But then he looks at Kaladin, and he stops. He stops himself from doing that, and ends up just closing up the wound. But what do you think about kind of that dilemma of, and I think it ties into one of the questions we got, of Lirin possibly thinking like, oh, I could just nick this right here and that's it.
Yeah, so I think I understand if people would say like, hey, I would have done it. Like Kaladin says, I would have done it. I think later in the chapter he says, that day I knew I could kill people. Like it just made sense to me. Some people need to be killed. That's how he felt. So I get that, but I also understand Liren is like, I am a surgeon and I am put on this planet to save people's lives, not end them. And he was okay, like stealing and stuff like that, but he was not gonna let that guy die on the table if he could help it. And like definitely not murder him. So the question
Yeah, and
asked,
in contrast, like you said, because Kaladin is like, nah, you should have let him die.
yeah, he said a lot of our problems would have been solved, which I don't think that's true, because then, I mean, they're already skeptical of him, and now, oh man, you had 2 Bright Lords die on your table, you know? Like, I can see that going bad as well. I don't think this is going to play out good for them either, but still. And the question asked, you know, is he a hero? Is he a coward? Or is he something else? I wouldn't call him a hero or a coward. I think he's just someone who understands his values and how he's going to live his life and was okay saying, hey, this is what I stand for. And yeah, Kaladin being there helped. I don't think he would have done it either way if Kaladin wasn't there or not. But that's what I think of that.
Yeah. It's a pretty cool, I don't know if cool is the right word, but that realization of Kaladin being like, nah, I can kill people. Like, I can do what it takes. But there's one last thing in this chapter, and it ties into the title. So I'm curious, like, it has to mean something, but I don't know. Maybe there's not. It's just not in this summary. Is Liren tells Kaladin to go inside and get some rest so he can be ready when Alds and Milp, the dark-eyed men who accompany Rashon's hunting party, are brought back. So what is the significance of Alds and Milp?
What do you mean? Like,
well, that's the name of the title of the chapter, and they're only brought up kind of in passing. So, why name the chapter after them? Is there some significance?
I don't know. I didn't think about it too much. Honestly, I didn't even like.
I guess there's not.
Well, I mean, Kaladin thinks they're dead for sure, and I think, at least my guess would be, hey, it's a contrast of, like, Rashon rushed over to bring his son in, but was willing to leave 2 people dead. You know, that's the only reason I can think of the chapter being named that. But
okay, because I clicked on their names and they're never brought up or referenced again. So
yeah, I'm pretty
guess they're not important. But
I'm pretty sure Kaladin's like, yeah, no, their wounds are supposed to be bad. They left them, and they're gonna be dead.
Yeah,
so I hate to do this to you, but I want to go back a little bit, back to chapter 40, because I think we did skip over some stuff. And I'm going to ask you a question. Do you remember the story that, I can't remember who it was. Hold on. Oh yeah, that Sigzil tells Kaladin about the eyes of red and blue?
No.
Okay. It's okay.
But wait. But we read this chapter a long time ago, so catching up for this episode, I read 41 and 43. I don't. Sorry.
Anyways, so basically, where he's from, I don't know if it's where he's from or a different part. I don't remember. But when someone gets sentenced, they can, like to execution level, they can get executed or they can get put out to sea where there's these I always forget what they're called, the giant monsters that they fight. Great shells, right? That's what they call them.
Yeah.
And if they survive out there for I forget, it's like 10 days or something like that, then they're free to go. And he's like, nobody's ever made it past 1 day. They all get eaten like so fast. And he's like, but everybody does it. Everybody takes the chance of the false hope, and you know, they call them, like, they say that, oh, they have eyes of red and blue because they don't see what's really lying for them or what's waiting for them in the future. They just can't accept their fate and they'll take the false hope. And I was going to ask you, what do you think of that?
Yeah. Well, it ties into the whole idea of Kaladin giving people false hope or who are just going to kind of die. It's tricky, you know? Like, do you tell people the truth and just let them handle what the truth is, or do you give them hope?
So, yeah, I mean, I just would have to go to chapter 42. Like,
I feel like there's some deep philosophy in there if you think about it.
Well, also, though, something I think about is Kaladin, like, these people are adults. I think they understand their situation. Like, I think they all understand that they're probably not going to make it. So I don't think it surprises me that he doesn't realize that. You know, he thinks like, oh, I'm tricking them into believing they're going to make it out of here. And I don't think any of them think that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
No, I think you're right. I think they realize the situation they're in. But I don't know. Just the hope that gives them something to latch onto, I guess. Because at that point, it's like, well, if we have no hope, like, why even keep trying?
Well, I think Kaladin was the one that really was thinking that something else could happen. He was the one that was, like, holding out for hope of, hey, we can change our fate. And I think everybody else was just kind of along for the ride of like, hey, you know what? Yeah, we do die less fast if we do this, and we do like enjoy each other's company. But
yeah,
I don't think he accepted where he was at yet. And I think he was the one that was seeing like with eyes in red and blue, and not so much everybody else. I think a lot of the other bridgemen understood where they were at. And then finally in chapter 42, he comes around and is like, okay, yeah, this is our situation. There is no changing it. And like they start quoting the journey before destination stuff. But yeah, I think that story foreshadows that Kaladin is the one who's maybe seeing with eyes in red and blue. But anyway.
Interesting.
I just wanted to talk about that.
Well, we might come back to some of that. So let's jump into our Shallan chapter.
Yeah.
So we're back with Shallan, and we're in Kharbranth. And this is after about 2 weeks of studying and contemplating what Yasna did. Shallan finally approaches her and talks about her research, about how she felt about the killing of those guys in the alley. And Shallan basically says that the philosophy suggests that what Yasna did was both legal and right, but it was neither moral nor ethical. So what do you think?
I'm going to have you answer that one first. That was also a question in our Discord. Was Yasna right? Or I guess was Shallan right? Also, we could say that. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have a problem with the question of legality, because morality, I don't know, it's almost like it's not like a deeper thing, like speaks to like, I don't know, just what like our souls feel is right and wrong. But legality is kind of a gray area, and we talked a little bit about this, about, for example, what Szeth is doing. Because Szeth, he's killing people, and which is immoral, but in a way I kind of argued that it could possibly be legal. So if you play like D&D, you might know like the term lawful evil. Szeth follows a law, his own law. And we don't know too much right now about his oath stone, but there's a possibility that like where he's from in Shinovar, to disobey the oath stone is almost illegal. Like that would be considered illegal in his country. I'm just speculating, possibly. So legality kind of is like a little bit of a gray area because it depends on where you're from. So you can almost use, I don't know. That was one of the main things, because morally I agree with the murder was not morally right, but it was legal. But like Shalon said, it comes down to like the intent behind it. Like seeking out and killing people is not seeking out people to kill is not okay. But defending yourself and killing them is okay.
I wonder what Shalon would feel about like the war that's in the Shattered Plains then.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are those soldiers on the immoral? Are they doing immoral things going out there? Is
Yeah, because I feel like, especially at the levels that we're able to get to with like Dalinar, like these very, very high up people in the society, I feel like these questions apply a lot more. Because like for the peasants, the people like us, like even if I was in the military, in the military, being able to go, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do because of what my orders are and what like I'm serving my country and all that. But the people that are up really, really high that don't have necessarily those same laws to abide by, they have to almost ask themselves these type of questions of like, is what we're doing okay? Because there's no legal system that is telling me to do or not to do what I think we should do.
There's that, but then also, like, okay, yes, a bandit killing somebody over money is bad, but a leader not thinking about these things, and he's sending thousands of people to their death, or potential death, or to go out and kill people themselves. So
almost like what Sadius is doing. He's just, hey, send them out there so they die.
I think, and yeah, basically, he what he is doing is, I guess, legally okay, but then morally,
but it's not moral or ethical.
Yeah, is not. But I think in respect to this situation, I think I agree slightly more with Yasna, because yes, she went out looking for it, but she was also going like with intent of doing good. And I know that sometimes like a means to an end can be a bad thing, but like they were hurting people and they were doing really bad things. So in this situation, I tend to agree with Yasna more than Shalon. Especially with like the philosophies that she reviewed in our last section. Like even Shalon was kind of like, well, I guess by all the philosophy, she's kind of justified in everything she did. Not saying that the philosophies are, the be all end all to everything. I'd be curious to what the Ardents would think of this situation that Yasna did. Probably they would hate it. But the other thing I would ask you, building on this little philosophy stuff, is if Liren, Kaladin's dad, Liren, how do you say it? Liren were to have killed Rashon by slitting the artery, what do you think? In our philosophy playground that we've made,
it's because the tough one about that is the intent would have been to kill him. It's legally not okay to kill him, but that in his context as a surgeon, he could get away with it. So it's kind of like wrong in that way too.
Yeah, I think
like if people knew the intent behind what happened, then I think it would like be illegal, like if he had killed somebody. But the fact that nobody would know, which kind of falls into the whole thing with the spheres of like he stole the spheres, but nobody knew. So is it okay to do things if nobody knows that what you do is wrong? That's kind of like where the dad, I guess, draws the line of like, oh, I could get away with it, so I'll do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's so much that he thought he could get away with it. I mean, I think he knew he could get away with the spheres. But I think he also knew he could probably get away with letting him die. Or actually killing him. But I think in the way that Shalon's questioning what Yasna did, like he would be murdering him, so that's illegal. And then ethically, like as a surgeon, you're supposed to save people, so that would not be right. And then it definitely, I think you could justify maybe morally, like, hey, this guy's doing a lot of harm to a lot of people. It might be worth it, But at least as far as legally and ethically, I think that would be no-nos for him.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really like that he's used these chapters to kind of frame like
a
now
philosophy
I'm
system.
thinking about it. Yeah, of like, okay, when we go to this character, when we go to that character, it's just in the forefront of my mind now.
Yeah. No, and I also like how at the end, Yasna, after these conversations, she's just like, yeah, well, even if I don't agree with you, you did your work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this will come up again. And
Yep.
then she was just like, go and do what you want for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
I really like Yasna. I told you she already told you she's up there for one of my favorite characters. Before we go on, we have a question here, and I think it's going to get answered later in the story. So I wanna talk about it now. So the question is, what's going through your head with the epigraphs these days? I know a fair number of people skip them, but I always love hearing what others think of them if they're reading / paying attention to them. I
mhm.
am definitely reading and paying attention to them, and I want to say, like when we first started this, it's like I don't know what part we're on, part 3 or something like that. I thought the epigraphs were Yasna's notes that she was taking of reading about the folklore of the desolations and the Voidbringers. I've been collecting them, and I think like when we finish this part, I'll go through all of them and kind of give my whole thoughts on that. But we do, like, I think that's pretty much confirmed in this chapter. Later on, Yasna talks about like you get quote. I think that one of the quotes even like in the one of the chapters we just read.
Yeah, she uses the quote in the chapter.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, yeah, I think they're cool. I I want to get more of that. I want more of it. Give me.
Yeah. Also,
It's
they
cool.
change from part to part because where we're at right now, it's yeah, it's more Yasna's things. But in the first part, we get the death rattles.
Yep. And then we got the letter
Mm-hmm. So
in part 2. But no, that's what I think of them. And I think once we, like I said, once we finish this part, I'll tell you my whole thoughts on
yeah,
on every one of them and see if I can pull out anything. I'm really holding
yeah,
myself. I love them so much. Like I want to look at the further chapters and read them, and I'm like, no, Jacob, don't do it. Don't do it. You can
yeah.
behave. All right.
No, yeah. I prefer the rattles, or no, I prefer these epigraphs than the rattles. Yeah. Mainly just because I really like folklore and all that. So I do like these. The death rattles are cool too, but I like this set of them.
I have a feeling I will appreciate the death rattles later on more, but right now they were
Yeah,
just like ramblings that I incoherent to me. But these, I'm
yeah,
kind of like, okay, I have a footing in this world now. I can see where she's getting at. Like, I also think like some of them mention the Parshendi a little bit. If I'm picking up what she's putting down, but I enjoy them. I enjoy reading them. But sorry to interrupt
hmm
there. I just wanted to answer before we got to that section.
yeah. Okay. Well, from here, pretty much, Shalon goes back to her room and she's still trying to use this soulcaster, trying all these different things, and nothing seems to work. But while she's messing with it, she is startled and she hears a voice that says, "Who is there?"
Ooh.
But the only thing that she notices is that the maid is there. And she's like, "What the heck?" And she kind of figures out, like, there's no way the maid said that. Like, she feels like she's hearing voices pretty much. And she notices that the maid had come out of Yasna's room, which is where the maid is not supposed to go. And we kind of get another moral dilemma for Shalon, where she finds this as an opportunity of like, oh, I can use this as an excuse to get into Yasna's room and use the excuse of, oh, it was the maid that was in there. It wasn't me that went in there. So she goes to Yas's room and she pretty much finds a bunch of notebooks just containing different information, and some of that information is about the fabled city of Urithiru, references to Voidbringers, and also some other books about Nada-Natin, the Unclaimed
Whoa, is that
Hills,
how
and
you
the
say
Shattered
it?
Plains. Nada-Natin?
I was saying Nakanatan.
Oh, so yeah, kind of all of these things that Shallan's even a bit like, why is Yasna reading about these things? Like, these aren't the types of things you would expect her to be reading about. So
Yeah, but she already knew she was reading folklore. You know what I mean? I'm kind of
yeah.
disappointed in that. Like, put it together, man. Come on, put it together.
Uh-huh.
But you didn't ask me, so I'm gonna ask myself. Who do I think said it? Oh, I don't know. Maybe the weird prism head guy that she saw and drew behind the freaking king of Carbranth.
Yeah.
And then, what do I think that guy is? Oh, I think that guy, weird prism head guy, is a Spren. And I think I talked about this last section. I think each of our main characters is going to have their own little personal Spren. Kaladin has Syl. Shallan has prism head guy. That's how I think it's going to go down. Write it down. Write it down, everybody. I'm calling it. I'm convinced. But yeah.
Okay, no comment, but glad you're trying to piece things together.
Oh yeah. I'm waiting to see that guy again because he scared me the first time I read it.
Yeah, I love the way that he writes those little like horror-y type parts. They're pretty cool. Because the way that he writes it is like, that's terrifying. That is, if I was writing or drawing and I drew something like that behind me, I would freak out.
And it's so well done where he establishes like she has photographic memory and she knows she does. So then it's like, it's not just that she drew a scary picture, it's that she saw that, you know, and she just doesn't remember it. Like, it's like, it's the equivalent, it's the fantasy equivalent of the horror thing where they're looking through old pictures of family pictures and they're looking. And then they're like, wait.
Yeah, they see Pennywise in the background.
Yeah, dude, in the background. They're like, oh my God, he's been here the whole time. Like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, so that's kind of the first half of this. Is the whole Yasna situation. How do you feel about her kind of wanting to pin this on the maid? When I was reading that, I was kind of like, dang, that's kind of messed up to be even thinking about doing that. I was thinking, you know what would have been good? I don't remember how this plays out. But if I was Yasna, and I was really trying to put Shallan in a situation, I would have killed the maid.
Oh my God.
Because then Shallan would have been like, oh my gosh, I got this girl killed. Like, so I can lie to do this.
I don't think Yasna would do that, because I think what she's trying to teach Shallan is that the world isn't black and white. That you're going to have to do things that make you
let go
feel
of your beliefs a bit.
Yeah, and we're seeing that. We're seeing Shallan do that. Like, the Shallan that showed up here would not have done that. And
it was good thinking on her feet,
cool.
for sure.
It was, and I'm hooked on Shallan. She can play the game, I think. I'm starting to see the potential of, hey, if she gets involved in like political decisions, which I think she will be, whether it's out like, you know, in the Shattered Plains area, because we know Yasna is being requested to go over there, or if she goes back home, like I'm starting to believe that she's clever in her actions, not just other people telling her, you know?
Yeah.
And clever in the way of like sly, I guess.
Yeah. No, I'm excited for you to read the next chapters. So I want you can text me or put in the Discord your thoughts as that goes down. So I'm excited to read them again. But kind of moving through this. So the next section is basically Capsule comes to meet with Shallan again. And they have this moment with their truth very jelly, and they're basically just flirting with each other.
Yep.
Which
just in time for
is
Valentine's
really
Day,
weird.
Huh?
Yeah, the Valentine's Day episode. Yeah. And it's kind of weird because even Shallan's like, okay, you're like an artist, like you're basically a priest, and you're like flirting with me, like that's not right. But she kind of like even talks about how like she kind of plays into it though, because from the way she's mentioned it, like nobody's ever really flirted with her, so she's kind of like I kind of like this, I guess.
Well, we also
And
learned that I
then,
guess her dad was very. I mean, one, we knew he was a dickhead, but he sheltered her as far as not just, oh, you're royalty and, you know, you need to be safe or whatever, but like you
yeah,
need to be hidden. You can't be seen. So,
yeah.
yeah, a lot of this is new
And
to
she's
her.
finally being seen.
Yep.
So, yeah. And it kind of all culminates in a couple things, but one of the main things was pretty much Capsule saying, like, a man can leave the Ardentia, Shallan. And Shallan's like, whoa. And then that's where she blurts out, like, Yasna says you're just getting close to me because you want her soul cast.
Yeah,
And
she needs
that's
to remember
when-
that. She needs to remember that. Shallan, don't let me down. Don't let me down.
And yeah, that's when this whole thing comes up of like the stolen soulcaster could be really problematic. And like for the kingdom, basically. Like if somebody got that, they could do bad things with it. And Capsule, he does end up admitting that, like, is that in this chapter actually?
That he was going to steal it?
Yeah, he says,
Or that
like,
he was
oh, well,
going
my
to
initial
convince her
plan.
to help him
Yeah.
get it? Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, so that gets happened. And during that conversation also, he kind of tells Shallan generally how to use it. And Shallan's like, nah, I've tried that. That doesn't work. But yeah, so there's something kind of going on here with Capsule, Soulcaster, Shallan, and also their kind of like relationship that's building.
Yeah, I don't buy it. I still don't buy it. I don't trust the guy.
Yeah. But like you said, he's kind of done a good job at setting up this idea of like Shallan's kind of vulnerable because this is like very new and she's not very exposed to like the world and the types of things that people would do.
Yep.
So.
I agree. And then she kind of she calls him out on something. And then I'm trying to find where it's at. Hold on, I'll find it right now. Oh. She goes. Okay, here we go. The king often went strolling through the gardens on his midday walk. She waved to him, but the kindly man didn't see her. He was deep in conversation with the Ardent. Capsule turned, noticed the king, and then ducked down. What? Shallan asked. The king keeps careful track of his Ardents. He and brother Ixil think I'm on cataloging duty today. She found herself smiling. You're scrapping your day's work to go on a picnic with me? Yes. I thought you were supposed to spend time with me, she said, folding her arms, to protect my soul. But then he comes up with an excuse. I was, but there are those among the Ardents who worry that I'm a little too interested in you. But I feel like that was the first hint of like, wait a minute. Like, aren't you, quote, supposed to be here? What are you doing? I don't buy him.
Yeah, I can see it.
I don't.
You're onto Capsule.
Yeah, I don't trust that little punk.
With your Shallan. Anyway, so moving on from there.
You don't want to talk about that delicious line?
Oh gosh, yeah, that one I was like, Brandon.
My
word. Just how she says Capsule, I was like, Brandon. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was wild. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, I didn't remember that, but reading it, I was like, okay. Yeah, this is... I
bet those voice actors got a little steamy in the audio recording, huh?
This is a Valentine's episode.
Yeah, the Valentine's
episode. Chapter 43, The Wretch. So, we're back with Kaladin. This episode's kind of been Kaladin-centered. And Kaladin's in Sadeas' war camp. And from here... basically we get the new the replacement of what was the name of the guy that they killed?
Something Limmer, something like that.
Lamarl's replacement.
Lamaril.
Yeah. And this new officer's name is Matal. and for some reason his wife is like the one that basically is like doing all the talking and stuff, but named Brightness Hashal. And yeah, and she basically tells him like, this is your new leader, and he's not gonna like let things go the way that the other guy did. Like, things are gonna be ran tight now. And through all that, she basically assigns. Kaladin does have like his little stand-up ish moment where he blocks the spear, and then he has to like let the guy hit him and all that. But basically, one of the main outcomes of this was that Matal basically says that Bridge 4 is on permanent chasm duty and has to run bridges. So they're pretty much putting them in like the worst situation they can, like tiring them out, giving them the worst job they can, and yeah, Kaladin's just like, well, like we gotta get to work, do our thing.
But it's not that though. It's not just that. It's a very, what do you call it? Downtrodden version of that. Like, he's not saying like, hey guys, we gotta push through. He's like, what can we do? Let's just go to work, you know?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Apathy. Yeah, and Syl even calls them out because while they're on their way to go into the chasm, Syl appears to him and is like, why aren't you happier? Like, you just survived. You know, you should have been dead. And Kaladin brings up his desire to fight the soldier, like, oh, I wanted to fight the dude. Like, I wanted to kill him. And then Syl kind of drops a wild thing where she's like, yeah, I've helped men kill before.
Right.
And,
yeah, man.
Yeah, and I was like, whoa, okay, Syl.
What does that mean?
Because yeah, that's kind of interesting. And yeah, and she kind of is like, I don't really remember what I remember, but I just know I did. But I feel like it was the right thing to do. I don't know why though.
Again, we're just layering on like an onion right here. But so I want to talk about Syl here. I'm obsessed with Spren. And she goes, I hate it, she said, growing more translucent, but I've helped men kill before. Kaladin froze on the ladder. What? She's like, it's true, she said. I can't remember it. I can remember it, just faintly. I don't know, man. It's just like, I don't think Kaladin always had this. Well, I'll call it surge binding right now. I'm gonna commit surge binding power. I think it definitely, like, Syl protects him. She's gaining her memories as she like stays with him. I don't know if she's necessarily the source of like this surge binding, but at least maybe like helped unlock it within Kaladin, or I don't know, you know. But there's so much more to her than we've been introduced to. Like, I don't think she's just a Windspren, but. And then, so she also says, which is just crazy, and I can't remember if they talked about this or not, because, I mean, we took, like, a big hiatus, but Kaladin goes, or, like, well, I'll read this part. He was wrong, Kaladin said, because he implied that you could protect people in other ways. You can't. This world wants them dead, and trying to save them is pointless. He reached the bottom of the chasm, stepping into darkness. To have to reach the bottom next and lit the torch, bathing the moss-covered stone walls in flickering orange light. Is that why you didn't accept it? Syl whispered, flitting over and landing on Kaladin's shoulder. The glory, all those months ago. Syl wasn't there when that happened, though. At least as far as I remember. Like when he killed, because I think he killed like a Bright Lord or something, and they wanted to honor him, and that's how, like, I don't know, he got shamed or whatever. I don't think she was there for that, unless they talked about it. But because that was before he was in the cage. Or he couldn't
see her.
What?
Or he couldn't see her at that
time.
Or
she was there, but you know he didn't know she was there because he didn't become aware of her until he was in that cage, which was, you know, whatever. But yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
So. From that point, pretty much Kaladin has a snap out moment where he's being all mopey. All the guys are there like, why isn't he, you know, leading us? And then he snaps at them and is like, we're screwed, we're bait, we're going to die. And that's where I think it was Mo, Ash, or Tef. It's just like, you idiot! Like you've built up so much hope in these guys, and now you're destroying it. And it leads to it. Go for it.
But Taft brings up a little something. Unless you're going to get there, I'm sorry.
About the Knights Radiant and all that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was where I was going.
I'm sorry.
It's all right. So from there, Taft starts to talk to him about not giving up hope, that if you die, at least die trying. And he brings up one of a line that was said by the Lost Radiance, which is Journey Before Destination. And that's a real big statement for this book, and it's talked about a lot. But the thing that he also brought up that I thought was really interesting is Sigil overhears, and he says that he learned that from some groups in Yule who vocally waited for the return of the Radiance. And I believe that this whole conversation starts coming up about some people saying that they wanted the Radiance to return, other people saying that they had betrayed humanity.
Yeah.
And it kind of adds a little bit of grayness to what originally would have been kind of seen as, the Radiants are the good guys.
Yeah.
It kind of adds like, are they really?
There's two schools of thought, it seems like. Okay, so I was on top of the religion aspect. I need to go back. But like Vorinism and like that's gone, I think. Maybe. I don't know. But they were like the Ardents, right? Like they love the Knights, I think. I think they like the Knights. And then there's everybody, maybe not everybody else, but there's another group of people who don't like them, and I think that's where they call the Lost Radiance versus the Knights Radiance. It's just interesting. I need to go back into my religious studies in this and see who's lining up with who. And also like Teft, dude, he's like, I just heard it somewhere. Like, no, you didn't. Don't lie. Like,
No, it was Sigil.
No.
Teft
was the one who said it, and Kaladin was like, what? And then he's like, I just heard it somewhere, I thought it sounded cool. But then he gets all defensive about them, too, when someone else starts, like, trash talking.
He ends up saying, does he end up saying here the whole line? Not just Journey Before Destination?
Sigil does.
Yeah. So it's all life before death, strength before weakness, journey before destination.
Yeah. So watch, it goes... Where does he go? Where does it start? Hold on. I'll get it. Oh, yeah. He's like, I don't know what the point is, Teft grumbled, but it seems pathetic to give up. We should keep fighting, right until those arrows take us. Journey before destination. And Kaladin, really sassy. What does that mean? So unnecessary. Then Teft goes, I don't know. Looking down quickly. Just something I heard once. Such bullshit. Such a liar. And then that's when Sigil jumps in. He's like, it's something the Lost Radiance used to say. And then they start arguing about it. And Teft's insisting that he doesn't know. I think there's one point. I want to say there's one point. Oh, the Lost Radiance helped the other side, this other Scar argued. They were tarnished all along. Teft took offense at that. The wiry man stood up straight, pointing at Scar. You don't know anything. It was too long ago. Nobody knows what really happened. Dude, he knows something. He knows about Kaladin's abilities. This guy, he's hiding something.
Yeah. Well, from that whole conversation, though, I guess the motto speaks to Kaladin. He starts to think about his brother and everything, and he's like, all right, we'll try. And that's when he kind of tells everybody, we're going to train. I'm going to teach you guys the way of the spear.
Oh.
And then we're gonna attempt an escape. And everybody, they're like, all right, cool. Like, they got their leader back, except for Rock, who he's kind of like, that's beneath me. I don't fight. That's low. And yeah, I mean, that's kind of it. So that's where we're left off with them, is they're going to start training and they're going to plan an escape. So
yes, sir. It's definitely not going to go according to plan.
Yeah.
which I hope. So I want to say there's a line in here. They're talking about like the knights radiant and the void bringers being like fairy tales or like campfire stories. I think Rock's saying it, and I want to say someone brings up a nightspren. You know what that is? You know
A
nightspren?
nightspren.
Yeah, like nighttime, nightspren. You ever heard of that?
Uh-huh.
He has.
No.
I can see it. I can see it on his face.
Uh-huh.
But anyways, I thought that was interesting. Again, obsessed with the spren, so I can't remember if it was here or if it was in another chapter, but I'm keeping my eye on that. But no, I think these were really good chapters. Like we can talk about the philosophy all day long here of like just really Brandon tying it all together of presenting the idea and then showing you like example after example after example of, hey, these characters are doing this. Like, remember what we talked about over here? What about now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really enjoyed these chapters. Okay, I'll go to my overall thoughts here. You've told me, you've said, hey, Stormlight Archives is like the Marvel of fantasy books. And you said the good Marvel. And we both really liked the good Marvel, so please, nobody take that as offense. I know that can mean a lot of things nowadays.
You say Marvel, and it's like, what?
So we mean... Marcos means that in the best way. But this book has really... And I don't think it's like super deep and, introspective or like some philosophy book or anything. But it goes deeper than I thought. And I really enjoy it. So I'm really enjoying
I do remember that too. I remember when I first started reading this series, just because I'd read Mistborn. And Mistborn's good. I liked Mistborn, but going in, I was expecting it to be a lot more, I guess, like, I don't know, maybe like YA, a lot more simple with the world building. I didn't expect it to go where it goes. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I'm enjoying it, so all good. I hope it doesn't get lost in the sauce when things start going down. I hope we retain this. Yeah, I hope we retain this focus on these things, on the not necessarily mental health, but just the, I don't know what you would call it, introspection side of things. When it gets ratcheted up in the fantasy aspect, because it really it's pretty high fantasy, but it hasn't been the stereotypical like, we're in this tavern and we need to go to this tavern and we need to go to that tavern. Like it's not that right now.
It's unique.
It's very much exploring these characters, where they're at, their dilemmas a lot, and really taking its time. Like, we've had a couple action scenes, but I mean the last one I can think of was when they fought Dalinar fought the Great Shell on the Shattered Plains. That's been a long time now. So
no, but it's doing the groundwork, because then when things go down, like, we've spent so much time with the characters that we'll be able to really dig into what's happening compared to just having characters we don't really care about doing a bunch of things. No, but for the next episode, I think we'll do 44, 45, and 46. You need to look at how many pages that is. For sure, want to do 45 though. 45 is going to be a discussion.
You keep hyping it up, man. You're gonna overhype it.
I know. Sorry. Hopefully I didn't overhype it, but I'm hyped for it. So.
Yeah, he said he told me today. He goes, remember the chapter with the red wedding? It's like that. That's what he told me. So.
That is not what I said. No, I did not.
No, well, hold on. Let me see. I can tell you right now.
I just think after that chapter...
Yeah, it's also another 60 pages, so that's a...
Just with those two?
44, 45, and 46. I think we can do that.
Okay.
It's still just 60 pages.
Let's do that then. Okay.
But, cool. Thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate it. Appreciate all the support.
Help us get, if you can, we're one subscriber away from 100 So
Yeah,
that would be
tell a family member, and then please, if you're interested in joining the Discord, come on over. I think we're gonna make an effort on being more active there and actually, putting an effort into it. Since we got enough people, man. We got people there who want to talk, and we want to talk to them. So come on over.
Yeah, that's why we're here. So
that's right.
All right then. Well, thank you guys for joining us on this episode, and we will see you guys on the next one.
Adios.